Hi everyone, long time no see. It's been a pretty hectic couple of months to say the least. Between settling down here in Wales and a bunch of health issues that I'm not going to bother boring you with, I haven't really had a chance to get back into the groove of making videos until now. Hopefully there won't be another 2 months between this and the next one, but I won't jinx it. So anyway, let's get on with today's piece of art. Like a lot of my ideas, I got the inspiration for this one immediately when I woke up. I just had this image in my mind's eye of a Shiba Inu standing on a cliff top surrounded by all these blue mountains, as you do. And I think it's probably caused from being down here in Wales. There's lots of hills surrounding where I live now, and they have that weird blue shift that hills and mountains in the distance seem to always have. I once heard that's just the colour of the air causing it to appear blue, which I guess makes sense. But the image kind of stuck in my head, and I decided to sketch it out in my sketchbook, and I liked the idea so much that I took those sketches into Photoshop and played about with them a bit. As I was thinking through the composition, I wanted to fill the dead space that had been created on the left-hand side of the canvas, and I thought, with me wanting to take this in a traditional Japanese brush painting style, it could be fun to have something written in Japanese on that side, and with that idea, what would be better than having a haiku? And I thought finding a famous Japanese haiku about a dog would be really easy, but it turns out there aren't many with kanji translations out there in the wild, or at least that I could find. So I ended up resorting to writing one myself. Now, my Japanese isn't nearly good enough to write haiku in Japanese kanji. To be honest, my Japanese is good enough to let me realise how bad a job I did of my translation and transcription of my haiku, but not good enough to fix it. So I ended up compromising according to my ability, and I wrote the haiku in English. Haikus, for the uninitiated, as I was earlier this week, are poems that go 575 in syllables per line, and they usually refer to nature and its ephemerality. I'd say that they are pretty simple sounding, however, I don't know if that's the translations I'm reading or not. I don't mean that comment negatively either, because I don't know why, but I think simple can often be taken as a negative description. I think it's pretty good that they sound simple. It makes you focus more on emotion rather than a complicated idea or a thesis, like some Western poetry can get a bit too focused on. They seem to be more about capturing a feeling, especially feelings we have when out submersed in nature. So my haiku is a pretty poor one in the respect slightly, but hopefully you can enjoy the appearance of the kanji rather than the meaning in this painting. I'll stop stalling. The haiku I wrote was, "A dog on a cliff looks out across the mountains, everything is blue." Riveting. It gets worse though, because when I was planning the composition, my thoughts were to have it projecting out of the mouth of the Shiba Inu, but it looked a little bit comic booky when I sketched it out, so it wasn't really the look that I was going for. So I went instead with top to bottom, as you'd read Japanese, but again, didn't really go right to left like in Japanese. I reversed it again into the way you'd read it in English, from left to right, because the kanji would then decrease in size across the page, which I thought looked a lot more aesthetically pleasing. You know when people make fun of English on signs, or that subreddit Don't Dead Open Inside, where they have those signs where you have no idea how you were meant to read them, but you can't help but think, what the hell is the designer thinking? I have this newfound empathy for those designers after doing this. Between the language barrier and wanting to make something look good, I think I made a bit of hash of this haiku in translation. Hopefully anyone who can actually read it will accept my apology and understand that it was a well-meaning attempt. I decided to paint the kanji with ink to make it stand out more, because I planned on painting the rest with this new watercolour set that I just picked up. The watercolours that I'm using are the Kuretake Gansai Tambi set, which I got from Amazon. I'll include a link down in the description if you're interested in them. I've been using a small Winsor Newton travel set for a few years now, which are really good, but I wanted to increase the amount of colours I had available, and I had a host of other things that were slight problems with it, so I wanted to give this set a try. I think I might try and make a small review comparing the two. especially after testing them during this painting if you're interested in that. Now, even with the range of new colours, I did plan on keeping the colour palette restricted in this painting. I really wanted the Shiba Inu to appear lost in a sea of blue. I also wanted to keep the painting style a bit more graphical and loose, more to give the feeling of a landscape rather than a really detailed background. And one way I did this was looking at reference images for the initial sketches, but then working just from my memory and my imagination when I was painting it. I don't know if you guys feel similarly on this, but if I have a reference image open, I have a bad tendency to copy it onto the piece without even realising I'm doing it, even down to the shades and the colours. I always wonder if it's because when you're first learning to draw, or at least when I taught myself to draw, I would sit and copy objects onto the paper, like still life, and I just keep trying and trying until I was close to real life as I could make them. I was this massive perfectionist and realistic artist back then when I first was starting out, and I kind of moved away from it as I got older and I was exposed to more artists than just the traditional and religious artwork that I'd seen until that point. But that's really just my feelings towards it. I'm really interested to know whether you guys had a similar experience. Did you begin with still life and trying to make all your art look really perfect and realistic when you began, or were you a lot more free-spirited as a kid than I was? I'd love to know in the comments below. I think on top of the swapping setting to Wales, I've also been inspired recently by Isle of Dogs, the movie that recently came out by Wes Anderson. If you haven't seen it, it's a stop-motion animation about an island of dogs off the coast of Japan where all of the dogs have been banished by the mayor of Megasaki City. It follows these 5 main dogs, and they're helping a little boy who's crashed on the island and is looking for his lost dog Spot. I won't ruin the plot, but it's a really good film, and I'm not really usually a massive fan of Wes Anderson. I always loved the first 10 minutes of his movies, and then he takes it off into this completely different direction, and I'm never really as interested in that route, I guess. And that happened a little bit in this movie, only because the dogs are very funny and personable, and I'd have just been happy with a film about them. But it obviously gets a little bit bigger and more complex than that story, which I did enjoy, but maybe with this whole video talking about simplicity in art, or at least focusing on it, I do sometimes wish that you could just relax into his films, but then I guess they wouldn't be his films, so who's to complain? Regardless of the story, which I did enjoy, the animation was just beautiful. I'm a big Laika fan and an Aardman fan too, considering I have the same voice as Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. I kind of have to be, but I do love stop motion and puppets, so I was kind of along for the ride either way. There's something just so cool about all those different textures and playing with them. I'm a pretty tactile person, and I can't help touching things constantly. That sounded a little bit weirder than I meant it to, but that aspect of it really appeals to me. I'd recommend seeing it, I guess, is my general point, but also the characters of the dogs and the idea of dogs being our like close companions and a key part of human society, or in Britain they are at least. The subversion of them being out there on their own, just alone, feels just wrong. A dog alone feels like a metaphor for loneliness or isolation. So I really like the idea of putting the Shiba Inu out alone in this big, wide, empty landscape. Now, I've always admired the traditional brushstroke painting from Japan. I think it's really impressive being able to give a feeling of a subject and the feeling of movement in as few lines as possible. Again, it reminds me of haikus. It's really simple, but it's beautiful and skillful to be able to say a lot with very little. And with all that in mind, I really had to take a step back when I finished this painting. It was really hard not to keep adding depth and shading over what I'd done, but I do think it looks better kept simple. And that's it for this week's art video. It was nice to do a relaxing piece like this, especially as when I was just finishing it off, my partner brought in some furniture from the garden and didn't realise it was covered in hundreds of baby spiders. So while I've been editing this video, I've been alternating between going down to the kitchen and vacuuming baby spiders that keep appearing. It's bloody horrible. I keep getting these horrible tickly feelings as if I'm covered in spiders all day. It's been bloody awful. And the pains I'm going through making these videos, I didn't miss it all. I'm only joking. Even though I don't like spiders, I do feel a bit bad committing this mass genocide against them at the moment. I mean, at the same time, I don't want a kitchen full of spiders, but still, I mean, I'll try and not shed too many tears. Hopefully I won't be haunted by millions of dead baby spiders tonight. Okay, this is a bit of an odd ending to the video, but it was on my mind and I thought I would share. I hope you have all had lovely non-spider filled months while I've been gone, and I should be back with another video next Thursday. No, I will be back. Looking forward to chatting to you all again, and I'll see you soon. Have a great week.